Shalom. All praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High, Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Ba'asham Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone, and salutations to all you sincere can. And this is your brother Abawan, back again with another video through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Ba'asham Rakakwadash. All praises and glory is due. And the title of this video will be, when has Esau cared this much? Okay, when has Esau cared this much? Because this is getting ridiculous right now. Okay, and as you know, all right, there has been a recent string of killings here in Nigeria, particularly of quote unquote Christians, genocide here in Nigeria. And that's basically how the media is framing it. All right, basically what you have going on is a Christian genocide in Nigeria. All right, and if you look into the details of the news, right, let's go to that. Okay, because here's the thing right now, it is still something that is being talked about, something that the news media is still covering. Okay, even though to my knowledge it happened, it's even though to my knowledge it's still, we are still covering the same situation that happened, I think it was a month or so ago, in the same state in which it happened. All right, so the genocide, the violence, all right, is concentrated in one single state here in Nigeria. So let's get that. Well, and this is the article from the BBC, and the reason I'm going into this one is because it's the latest, one of the newest articles that was just published this, recently, like yesterday or so. Right. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has ordered security agencies to bring an end to the wave of killings in the central Benue state. It is believed that more than 200 people have died in a series of attacks across various communities in the last few days alone. Tinubu described the killings as inhuman and anti-progress. He was speaking after hundreds stormed the streets of the state capital Makurdi to protest against the killings. Authorities says thousands have been forced to flee their homes. Right. This is an issue right now, okay? But the media is framing it as some kind of Christian genocide, when in all actuality, like I said, okay, the killings, alright, the violence is only concentrated in one state in the country. So let's get this. Christian genocide, Nigeria. Alright. Let's open that up. And let's just read it. Let's read some of these articles and let's see if there are other places in the country where these quote unquote Christian genocides are going on, right? Because this is how the media is framing it right now. Oh, a Christian genocide is going on in Nigeria, right? And my question is the title of this video: when has Esau cared so much? When did Esau suddenly grow a heart and started caring about the Christians being murdered here in Nigeria, right? When you have far greater levels of violence in other parts of the world. This is coming out the breath of after Esau bombed the hell out of Iran, right? After Esau allowed the Saudis to completely devastate the Sudan. Esau's violence in the Congo is going on right now, but somehow Esau feels so sympathetic and is reporting consistently and going hard, okay, on the news of the quote-unquote Christian genocide in Nigeria. Oh, the jihadists, of course, they are, okay. There are some parts of the article, right, some parts of the news that are actually true. There is violence going on. It is Christians that are being killed, okay, forced to flee their homes and so on and so forth. And the people that are doing the killing are Muslims, for the Muslims, all these extremist jihadist groups, right, calling them quote-unquote Fulani headsmen, when they neither have cattle or herds, but basically it's just the terminology that they use for these people, because the real name is unknown gunmen, man, which is something that you haven't heard in a long time here in Nigeria, because this form of violence is not new in Nigeria, right? It happens constantly in various villages all over the country, whether it's the northern part of Nigeria, the south, the all the different geopolitical zones that you have here in Nigeria, and it constantly happens where you have these gunmen. They come in and they shoot, and they basically shoot up villages, okay. And the funny thing is that you have had violence against Christians in churches on a Sunday when they are worshiping, basically a church shooting, right? but I don't, I've been I've been scouring the internet, yeah, man, and I've yet to see a single one of these cases of this violence that is going on in Benue State, right? Or these Fulani herdsmen, the recent violence that took place in a church. So let's read. Nairobi, Kenya, OSV News. After a scene of horror in which around 200 people were brutally killed in Yelwata in Benue State, Nigeria Pope Leo the 14th prayed for the victims, calling it a terrible massacre. Even the Catholic Church is involved, man. This is a setup, yeah. This is a setup, man. And this is what I'm saying right now. This is a setup, okay. And as the scriptures say, we are not ignorant of Satan's devices. Let me get that, okay. This is my question. I'm still asking this question because I'm looking at all the news. I'm looking at how hard this thing is being covered, back to back, breaking news. Okay, as soon as as soon as the bodies are fresh, right? As soon as the life leaves the bodies, man, Esau has already printed a new, typed up a new editorial, a new article going into what's going on here in Nigeria. This doesn't make any sense, man. Okay, when has Esau cared this much? When has Esau cared enough to just be bringing out news articles upon news articles upon news articles of what's going on here in Nigeria, to the point where, a month ago they were covering this, a week, 3 weeks ago they were covering this, now they are still covering it. At that video that I started with in the beginning of the video, right? That, I think it's CBN News or so, something like that, right? That was the video that the Apostle Taha did like a month ago, going into the Christian massacres that are going on here in Nigeria. Until now, they are still talking about it. When has Esau cared this much? All right. 2 Corinthians 2 verse 11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. All right. Because, hey, look, man, this video that you're seeing right now, this is a new video that just came out 9 hours ago, right? And if you go on down in this same news channel, you will see that they have been doing videos going into the violence that's going on here in Nigeria. But my question is that, and I'm not denying it, okay, I'm not saying that this isn't actually happening, because it 100% is, and it is just as brutal as they say it is, okay. But my question isn't to say that it's not happening, to say, when has Esau cared so much? Why is Esau so focused on what's going on here in Nigeria? Remembering that there are far more violent, far more, basically far more violent, conflicts going on, not just in Africa, but all over the world. But this is the one that Esau chooses to hyper focus on, right? And basically, they have reframed it. They now turn it into some kind of Christian massacre. It is not, all right? Because let's just go, if you just simply, look at the map of Nigeria, you will find that in order for these jihadists, right, to get to Benue to do their Christian massacre, they had to go through multiple Nigerian states that are Christians as well, right? Because Nigeria is basically a split up geopolitical zone, right? So you have the Christians in the north, right? I was like, you have the Muslims. Okay, that's my bad. You have the Muslims in the north and the Christians in the south, right? And just an admixture like that. So you also have Muslims that are in the south, but the vast majority of people in the south of Nigeria are Christians. All right, so let's open this up. So yeah, almost every state in the outside of northern Nigeria is a Christian state. So it's not even a matter of, oh, it's a Christian community. Almost every community, half of the communities here in Nigeria are Christian communities. They are either Christian or Muslim communities. You don't really have any traditional practice, basically, practicing the African spirituality communities here in Nigeria. Okay, so basically, this is where the violence is going on. I don't know if you can see, but it's the red right next to, right in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to try and see if I can just highlight that. No, I can't. Right, where the pop-up is coming out of, that's where your Benway is. So in order for you to get to that region, you have to, like I said, cross through, okay, multiple Christian locations. Okay, and okay, there are a few that are actually Muslim, Adamawa and Taraba, which are to the east of Benue. Okay, right. So Basically, what I'm saying is that what I'm saying is that, and let's just go into some more articles, okay? This is what we've gotten. So just go into some more articles, right? And this is here it is. Responding to the attack on June 14th, Amnesty International Nigeria called on the country's authorities to immediately end the almost daily bloodshed in Benue State and bring the actual perpetrators to justice. Right, and this is something that is concentrated to one state here in Nigeria, which makes it even more suspicious than it already actually is. Okay, let's see if I can find that. Nope. Let's see. Let's see. Where is that? Where is it? I guess I probably closed it. So like, yeah, let me just open it in new tab again. Right. So like I was saying, this is very suspicious, man. And it keeps on, and it's like I said, man. When has Esau cared this much? The amount of media and coverage on this is very suspicious because it's similar to what happened during, I think that was 2015, right, with the Chibok girls when they were kidnapped by Boko Haram. It was something that happened, right, and it was a situation that became a global event. So basically, it became global news, man. Everybody knew about it, or about the jihadists that kidnapped over 200 girls from a school in the north in northern Nigeria, basically. And then you now later come to find out that the reason why that information was so publicized was because basically Esau was trying to oust the current regime that was happening here in Nigeria by sowing um by sowing distrust in the president, making him look incompetent, that he can't even bring back these girls that were taken, he can't even you know save or protect these girls that were taken or bring them back. So when the next elections rolled around and this president came in and wanted to try and become a candidate to get a second term, right, he was basically voted out because the people believed he was incompetent due to that Chibok girl situation and a lot of other things that were happening at the time. Because during Goodluck Jonathan's regime, right, as his reign as president, that was when you had Boko Haram operating, you know, at the highest level. Where basically every other day we hear about a bombing in the north, right? Hear about a bombing, in a Christian church getting bombed, or Christians getting shot, or violence in the streets. An explosion happened even in this federal capital territory. Boko Haram was operating heavy during that time period, right? And the reasons for that you not come to find out because hey, let's get this. Let's just get this. It's better to just show than to tell. All right, let's get this. And it's hold on. I didn't type that right. USAID, right? Here it is. So basically, all right. So basically, what happened is that USAID, USAID was discovered to have been funding Boko Haram. The AI just comes out and says, you know, no. Okay, so let's just read the AI overview. No, the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, is not funding Boko Haram. While there have been allegations and investigations into the possibility of USAID funds indirectly supporting the terrorist groups, both the US Embassy in Nigeria and USAID have strongly denied these claims. These allegations, stemming from a US congressman's statement, have prompted investigations by Nigerian lawmakers into the activity of USAID in Nigeria, particularly in the Northeast, right? So basically, you know, we investigated ourselves and we found no wrongdoing, right? And that's really what happens, okay? So yeah, you have basically the USAID and the institution, right? The actual government agency of USAID has now denied that, oh, that information that was recently revealed out by Donald Trump's or Elon Musk's Doge is false. All right, but as the scriptures say, we are not ignorant of Satan's devices, and we know that these terrorist groups are actively being funded, okay, by different groups, whether it is the Saudis in the Middle East, right, or even the West as well, which is why they have better military equipment than the actual military of the countries that they are called performing the acts of terror in. Okay, but that's even beside the point. What I'm actually looking for is any information on any place. Okay, oh, this is a good one. What I'm looking for is any information, whether because it is very, very, very suspicious that all this violence is concentrated in one state, and not even really in one state, but in a few villages in one state. Okay, because what the media will say is that, oh, it is a Christian genocide in Nigeria, but what they won't tell you is that it is being concentrated into one state in Nigeria, and Nigeria has 36 states. Okay, so only one state is really getting this level of violence. And then what they won't tell you as well is that it's concentrated to a couple of villages within that one state. And it shows you that this is a setup, man. Esau is running the play in this country right now. Okay. And basically it's just to find out what these devils are trying to do, right? Or what this setup, okay, these terrorists or these or whatever basically yeah, these terrorists are trying to do. Okay, from the US to Nigeria, how a Christian genocide narrative is being manufactured. In the United States, Christian political leaders, particularly evangelicals, claim that believers in Nigeria are victims of violence, even a so called genocide. Political scientist Marc Antoine Perros de Monclos, a specialist in violence in Africa, questions the scientific methodology behind these studies supporting these claims, as well as the biases of promoting such narratives. Right, and it's basically the same thing I'm saying. It's not a Christian genocide, okay? Just because the people that are getting put to death just happen to be Christian, which of course hey, the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushai put that judgment on them, okay? Because Wakitaki plantation Christianity is not the truth, especially for you Jakes, because the people that are in Benue are Israelites, all right? So Wakitaki plantation Christianity is not the way, all right, or the solution for you Jakes, okay? And that's why the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushai put that judgment on them, right? So let me get the quick precepts, right? Let me get the quick precepts. That should be Ezekiel the 21st chapter. So this is the book of Ezekiel 21 Ezekiel 21 verse 9. Son of man, prophesy and say, thus saith Yahweh, a sword is sharpened and also furbished. It is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. It is furbished that it may glitter. Should we then make mirth? It contemned the rod of my son as every tree. Right. Let's just a reminder, man, that there is still so much. Let's just reminder that we are still at the end of this, right? We are slowly approaching Jacob's trouble, and the situation on the earth is continuously escalating, right? Because Esau, Edom, the devil which the Bible speaks of, right, is looking to bring in his great reset slash NWO. Okay, that's what's coming next on the earth, and all the things that you see happening right now is Esau, right, working on making his enterprise, right, the NWO, the New World Order, a success. Okay, so going back okay, so let me just there's another piece that I want to get. Now let me leave that one. Let me leave that one. That's not, it doesn't apply to this situation, to this situation. All right. So yeah, you have a lot of people that are already questioning this situation as well because it is very suspicious, all right? So now, March 2025, following hearings on the persecution of Christian members of the States Congress call on President Donald Trump to impose sanctions on Nigeria, they accused the authorities in Abuja of failing to sufficiently uphold religious freedom in a country often portrayed as a textbook case of clash of civilizations with a fault line dividing a Muslim Sahelian north and a Christian tropical south. And whose fault is that? The main reason why you even have that divide is because of because of the British and how they basically forcefully joined northern and southern Nigeria together. Like, I think that was 1959 or so. I think they call it the confluence. I've gotten. Let me Google it real quick just to make sure that I'm not messing it up, right? Okay, no, that's the wrong one. What I'm thinking of is the amalgamation. Yeah, the amalgamation. Yeah, it is. Yeah, the amalgamation of Nigeria. So this is right here. The amalgamation of Nigeria refers to the merging of northern and southern Nigeria protectorates into a single political entity called the Colony and Protectorate of Nigeria in 1914. This unification was orchestrated by the British colonial administration, specifically under the leadership of Lord Frederick Lugard. The primary goal was to streamline administration and potentially improve the financial situation of the Northern Protectorate by leveraging the resources of the South. And that's the main reason why you have so much conflict here in Nigeria, right? Because they merged both the northern and the southern regions of Nigeria together, and that is just a method in which Esau uses to sow destabilization in the country, right? So yeah, and the situation that you have here in Nigeria is a direct result of Esau being the devil that he is. Okay, so the devil which the Bible speaks of. Okay, which is a direct result of the curses of the Most High Yahweh Sham Yahushai being put upon our people. So what I want to do right now is I want to get another a side topic, something else I wanted to bring out. Yeah, the spirit will bring it back to me. I forgot what I wanted to go into, but the spirit will bring it back. Okay, right. So continue reading it. Continuing on. Despite President Bola Tinubu himself being a Muslim, American neoconservatives point to the number of Christians killed by jihadist groups or Fulani militias as supposed evidence of anti-Christian persecution. Some claim that the regional giant is experiencing more religious conflicts than the rest of Africa combined. And why is that? Which of course brings me back to what I now remembered. I wanted to get this because I heard that lithium was. I heard that the main reason why this is actually happening is that lithium was recently discovered, right? Yes, you can find that. Yes, you can find that lithium was recently discovered in Benue State, and this is a good article. Lithium could fuel the next conflict in Nigeria. Lithium could fuel the next conflict in Nigeria, and this is written in August 24, 2023. Right. Newly discovered reserves of lithium are raising hopes of a new mining boom in Nigeria. But as Charles Asiegbu writes, this also has the potential to lead to violence as people fight for control of the new commodity, right? But what I want to see is whether they found the lithium in Benue State or in another state. Nigeria is known for its substantial oil reserves, but beyond petroleum, the country has over 40 commercially valuable national resources. Recently, Nigeria discovered enormous reserves of lithium, a highly reactive metal used in energy dense rechargeable batteries in cell phones, electric vehicles, and grid storage. Given the increased interest in renewable energy, the lithium market has surged as governments seek to phase out fossil fuel in favor of emissions free electric cars. A cost of a ton of lithium has risen from 4,600 in 2020 to over 61,000 euros in 2022. That's crazy. According to the World Bank, The demand for essential metals such as lithium and cobalt will increase by roughly 500% by 2050. The global electric vehicle market alone is projected to reach 646.23 billion euros by 2030. Most of the world's lithium is produced in four countries: Australia, the world's largest producer, Chile, Argentina, and China. However, these countries do not produce enough to fulfill the expanding worldwide demand. As a result, the search for lithium has moved to Africa and is already being extensively mined in Zimbabwe, Africa's largest producer, Namibia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Mali, and Ghana. And today's quest for lithium is gaining traction in Nigeria, with competition becoming increasingly fierce in Nigeria. Lithium is currently mined in Nasarawa, Kogi, Kwara, Ekiti, and Cross River states. In 2018, Kian Smith Trade and Co., a Nigerian mining company, announced the discovery of 15,000 tons of commercial lithium in Nigeria. Right, so one of those states actually interests me. Adamawa. So it's none of the states that are actually near. Okay, okay. So yeah, one of the states that you have lithium heavy in is Nasarawa, which is sharing a border with Benue State. Okay, so hey man, it's just showing you that a lot of these situations that you see happening here in Africa most of the times are mainly due to natural resources being discovered, right? And mainly being discovered on top of inhabited villages. So this is part of Esau's little plays, right? That's why I began the that's what my first preset was. We are not ignorant of Satan's devices. Okay, so I want to see if there was any you know discovery of lithium or any other critical mineral resources in Benue, but I can't find anything like that. It's mainly I've already gone into this before, right? The crackdown of illegal mining. I've already gone into this before, so yeah, just try this. So this is from an article in 18th of February 2025. So this is a little bit before you start seeing any these murders that are going on in Benue, or rather the killings that are going on in Benue, right? So this is an article from the Guardian. Insecurity. Rep alleges land grabbing by headsmen in Benue. Well, now we know that that is no longer an allegation, because this is actually what is happening, right? Why do you think that there are so much killings going on in the Benue state, and the people that do survive are basically forced to flee their lands, right? Due to the heavy amounts of violence. And they now have a situation called IDP, internally displaced people, which is something that is very common in war zones. Yes, surprise, surprise. This country, Nigeria, is a war zone. That's why Nigerians are able to benefit from refugee status, okay? Because Nigeria is basically a war zone, man. Anyway, but that's just part of the course once again. And this is all going back to the curses that the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushai put upon our people. And this is a result of those, this is just showing you that, hey, we are still in our captivity, okay? So yeah, a member of the House of Representatives, Tersier Ugbor, has raised alarm over an alleged land grabbing spree by the Fulani headsmen in Benue State, claiming that they have taken over 40% of the state's land and displaced thousands from their ancestral homes. Speaking to journalists in Abuja on Tuesday, Ugbor called for urgent intervention from President Bola Tinubu and security agencies to halt the crisis before it leads to further displacement and loss of lives, and it's already too late for that. So, hey, like I said, when has Esau cared so much? That's really my question. That's the first question that I was asking, because when I first saw, even the Apostle Tahar went into this as well, right? There's a Christian genocide going on in Nigeria. And where is Vocab, right? Where is Vocab Malone? Where are the apologists? Where are all these people that claim to be so deep, loving Christians, but somehow always only have smoke or energy for the Hebrew Israelites? Where are you in response to this situation right here, right? Why aren't you know why is it that is the Hebrew Israelites that are going into what's going on with Christians, right? Now we are the ones that have to deal with now even we are the ones that have to talk about your own situations and your own persecutions, right? This is a Christian genocide, right? This is a Christian persecution. Why is it that none of these plantation Christians that are constantly scoffing against this truth are covering it, right? And the other question is, why does Esau care so much about what's going on here in Nigeria? It is something that it raises suspicion, man. So with that, I'll just end the video right there. Once again, all praises, glory, and honor unto the Most High. Yahweh Hashem, Yahushai Hashem, Rakal Kodash, Wa Abad Babal, Shalom. And to the spirits, Happy Akam and Joaquas were edified, Shalom.